Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What is the scariest, creepiest, most bone-chilling thing that you've ever read online that claims to be true? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The Nazino Affair. Soviet Russians dump 6,000 people on an island in Siberia with F all except piles of flour. A month later, 4,000 are dead and scenes of the utmost horror. No wonder Ukraine wants to be independent of Russia. The murder mystery widely debated of Morgan Ingram. Her mother's blog is absolutely bone-chilling. I stayed up reading it stupidly while my husband was out at work for nights and nights. It's pretty obscure, but is really disturbing in a "this could absolutely happen to you" kind of way. It's the story of Final Fantasy VII House, recounted from the perspective of 4 or 5 different victims involved. Back in the early 2000s, there was a Final Fantasy role-playing forum created by a very disturbed woman and her partner who used it to lure insecure teens back to her house. Once there, she used every evil cult-like technique in the book to isolate them from their family, make them perform bizarre and dangerous rituals, often relating to in-game Final Fantasy stuff, and also managed to convince one victim to drain her bank account of $50,000, which she then spent entirely on cheap Wicca and occult crap like crystal balls and dragon statues. As the stories progress, the woman gets increasingly unstable and has violent outbursts and episodes where she claims the spirit of a Final Fantasy VII character appear to her and commands she do crazy things. The 5 different accounts are often interwoven in parts and makes it a long but very satisfying read. If you enjoy weeboo stories, go read it. This is one of the craziest ones ever recorded in internet history. I've never heard of this, but I loved Final Fantasy VII, and I like stories like this, so I'll be seeking it out later. Thanks. Not my story, but from a former classmate. This story takes place in Labrador, eastern Canada, outside a larger town. The story starts off in the early 1900s, with a family living on the outskirts of town. There are 10 family members in total. The standard mother, father, daughter, and I believe the rest are extended family and siblings. The daughter, as the story goes, would play house or other childlike games during the day while the family did chores, not far from the home, but for some reason, this one particular day she ventures a little farther away. The reason why she has, since she escaped me, by maybe picking berries. Anyway, as she's playing there, she's snapping twigs. She stays put, as it's probably family or an animal. Then a figure comes into view, tall, hairy, with long arms. The creature approaches the girl, followed by another of its kind, and they grin. I think the gentleman from BTVS, but furry. They chase the girl to her home. She screams for help. Her father and other male family members shoot at the creatures and send the dogs on them. Several nights after the incident, the child is playing indoors, and the mother in the kitchen, or not far off, and the rest of the family nearby. Something makes her look to the window, where she sees the grinning face of the creature, watching her. The family rushes to the upper level of the home, while the dogs chase the creature. There's banging on the exterior walls and door. The next day, there are ghosts and gashes along the sides of the house and door. Incidents like this occurred for several years after this, until the family just stopped going into town. Townsfolk assumed they had moved, fed up with wild animal attacks. Now the classmate who told me this story is from the town near where the family lived, and when he heard this story, went to check out the house. As you can expect, the house was in ruin from 50 plus years of disuse, but around the back were 10 unmarked graves. The creature had been dubbed the Traverse-Spine Sasquatch. Took some Googling to find it after this post had been written, so some facts may be off on my part. I read a story on Cracked about an Asian guy who kept getting robbed. Small things like candy bars, toilet paper, etc., and kept finding all of his things just a little bit out of place. So he sets up a video camera to try and find out what was happening. He starts watching the tape the next day, and around 2 a.m., a woman crawls out of his cupboard and starts moving around the house, eating food and going about things normally. Then she goes back into the cupboard and stays there. The man called the cops, and they found this woman who claimed to have been living in his house for over a year without him even knowing. Once upon a time, my friend was renting a farm in northern Ohio. We went up there all of the time so that we could drink and do illegal substances. It was rumored that the place was owned by a cocaine dealer in the 70s. We thought it was just a normal, creepy old farm until the weird things started happening. The farmhouse was fairly standard. It sat on a hill, it was dingy, totally trapped in the 70s, and it took some time to whip it into shape for parties or staying overnight. There was a cellar door on the side of the house that led to the murder basement. That place was horrid looking and scary. We said F that. There was a sauna and a hot tub. We used the sauna to steam and smoke in. The hot tub was the solid hell no. So, we were there off and on for a few weeks, and we kept noticing shit was just a little off. One night we heard a loud thud. It sounded like someone threw something at the house. We all went to investigate. Nothing. No one. Then a sick feeling came over me and I said, "What about the cellar door?" We were all fighting over who was going to look. We decided not to. The next day we checked it out. There was a light in the cellar when we looked. A narrow crawl space at the top of the basement wall had an opening into the house. Light was showing from the bathroom into the cellar. We moved some shit in the bathroom and found a wooden hatch, an effing escape tunnel. So we went to high alert. We knew someone was out there. The investigation began. I should mention now that there were 6 buildings on this property: the single garage, the carport, the little barn, the big barn, the long barn, and the farmhouse. The single garage had a mint condition red 1972 Porsche in it. Yeah, the carport had 20 or so rundown cars, jeeps, vans, etc. The big barn was just your average farm animal sort of barn. The little barn was stuffed with crap, and the long barn, we found thousands of dollars worth of vinyl records in a pig pen. There was a bunch of clothes, good clothes, ones that you wouldn't leave behind, a refrigerator door full of condiments, like it was ripped off the hinges in a hurry. Everything there looked like someone left in a hurry. Then behind the long barn in the woods was a burned down church. For real, a burned down church. It burned down in the 1880s. Not sure if anyone died in the fire. All that was left was a chimney. We found it one day when we were adventuring on the property. So, one day, we were partying, and we had a huge bonfire near the big barn. We'd all assumed by this time that a hobo had been squatting there, and we scared him off with our constant partying. There was wood in the barn that we wanted to burn, but we did not have a flashlight. I pulled my car up and turned on the brights, and we made a makeshift torch. We went in the barn. I was scared as shit. It was dark. I tried to act tough. I said, "Hey hobo, I'm gonna stick this effing knife in you if you come near us." It was just that moment that we heard it, 50 feet above us, on the giant tree-sized support beams that held up the roof, effing footsteps. Not deniable footsteps, effing boots, walking on an effing support beam in the dark, 50 feet in the air. We ran, screaming. Later, and heavily armed, we searched for him. Nothing. We hung out there for a few weeks off and on afterwards. I decided that I was too much of a pussy to go there anymore. Never found out what it was. Maybe a Vietnam War vet or a ghost. So what did we think? A hobo homesteader? Or something more nefarious? This always gave me the most goosebumps. Spectre, Alabama, 2147, points 9 months ago, 3725-1578. I was on vacation in Ithaca with my boyfriend at the time. We had literally, I'm talking 10 minutes, just gotten into town and stopped at a suspension bridge near Cornell's campus. I'm terrified of heights, and so My boyfriend was coaxing me step by step over the bridge. It was gorgeous, huh? And we stopped at the middle to take a picture. On the side we had come from, there was a parking lot with steps leading to the bottom of the gorge, but on the far side, there were hiking paths with no barrier. A woman walked past us and offered to take a picture for us. We declined, and she smiled and walked quickly to the far side of the bridge, where she smoothly jumped off into the gorge. There was not a second of hesitation. It was almost like she expected the path to keep going. The sound of a person hitting the ground from a jump like that sticks with you.